In setting public transport fares, the Public Transport Council, or PTC, aims to keep fares affordable for commuters while ensuring that our public transport system remains financially sustainable. In deciding on the fare adjustment to implement each year, PTC is guided by the fare adjustment formula, while also taking into consideration economic and social factors such as fare affordability, rising costs faced by both the public and the public transport industry, and the current economic climate. Sir, providing a safe, reliable, and resilient public transport system is a key priority for MOT, LTA, and PTC. This includes working with the public transport operators and unions to keep up service and reliability levels for the benefit of commuters. LTA has put in place different measures to hold our operators accountable for meeting their service and reliability standards. For example, by imposing penalties for lapses and setting incentives for good performance. So there are carrots and sticks within the system to incentivize the rail and bus operators to maintain high service and reliability standards without directly using the fare review exercise to achieve this outcome. Mr. New Parek asks how PTC arrived at its decision for this year's fare review exercise. For this year's exercise, the output from the fare adjustment formula is 3.3%, driven by core inflation and wage growth in 2023, and partially moderated by a decrease in energy prices from a peak in 2022. After adding the deferred quantum of 15.6% from last year, the maximum allowable fare adjustment quantum is 18.9%. Similar to the 2023 fare review exercise, PTC decided to raise fares by 6%, which is less than one-third of the maximum quantum, to keep fares affordable for commuters, while ensuring that the public transport system remains financially sustainable. The fare adjustment will be implemented in end December, similar to previous years. Ms. Polisan asked about fare increases in other cities. Different cities have different fare structures and revenue models, including having public transport operators that rely heavily on non-fare business such as property development and management of retail spaces to supplement their income. We have seen some cities like Hong Kong and London that have adjusted their fares each year, while other cities like Seoul took a different approach, where they did not adjust fares for many years before making significant increases over the past 1 to 2 years to account for higher operating costs. In Singapore, PTC has taken the approach of ensuring that fare adjustments are gradual so that the impact on commuters is more manageable. To Mr. Satyandhi's question on the impact of fare adjustments on affordability, PTC monitors this using the Public Transport Affordability Indicator, which measures the proportion of household income spent on public transport. For low-income households, this proportion has fallen from 3.1% in 2014 to 2.4% in 2023. For average public transport users, the figure has also reduced from 2.2% in 2014 to 1.7% in 2023. These proportions are expected to remain similar for 2024. The government supports PTC's approach. This is why we will provide about $250 million of additional subsidies in the coming year to cover the funding gap arising from the deferred fare adjustment quantum of 12.9%. This commitment by the government gave PTC the assurance to grant a smaller fare increase to mitigate the impact on commuters, knowing that the higher costs of providing public transport has been accounted for. The $250 million is in addition to the $2 billion annual subsidies to fund bus and train services, as well as the additional funding of up to $900 million over 8 years for for the bus connectivity enhancement program. To Mr. Saktiandi's question and also to Ms. Polisan's question, these additional subsidies will ensure the financial viability of the operators and that service standards, including any planned service improvements in response to changing demand, are not compromised. In addition, the cost of public transport infrastructure development is also fully funded by government, so any expansion or renewal plans are not affected by PTC's decision on fares. While the government has stepped in to provide additional subsidies to cover the deferred fare quantum these few years to help moderate the impact of fare increase on commuters, we need to recognize that these subsidies are ultimately borne by current and future generations of taxpayers. We should therefore gradually close the gap over time where possible, which is what PTC is doing for this year's fare review. PTC has also signaled that it intends to continue taking a gradual approach to future adjustments to mitigate the impact on commuters. Mr. Speaker, in years when there are fare increases, the government makes available public transport vouchers or PTVs to help cushion the impact on lower income households. Our principle is for PTVs to help defray a part of the fare increase for lower income households. The government understands Singaporeans' concerns about cost of living. That is why we revised the income eligibility criterion this year from monthly household income per person of $1,600 to $1,800. This allows 60,000 more households to qualify for a PTV this exercise. We have also increased the PTV amount from $50 in 2023 to $60 this year. And this will help to cover about 6 months of the fare increase for lower income households. Over the past decade, we have steadily improved the accessibility, inclusivity and quality of our public transport system. These outcomes have been achieved through a strong tripartite partnership between the government, operators, and workers to manage costs while enhancing service and reliability so that fares can be kept affordable and the public transport system remains financially sustainable. So this will continue to be our approach going forward.
First of all, I'd like to thank Minister for the sort of occasional PTV voucher help to vulnerable residents in Singapore. But I just note he highlighted that the sort of quantum of the CPI or household payments for public transport has for vulnerable households has dropped from 3.2 to 2.4%, if I caught it correctly earlier. And I note also in the CPI sort of basket, public road transport CPI weight is about 3%. So my question in terms of SQ is, with regards to PTV, public transport vouchers, can I ask Minister, how is this quantum decided upon? In terms of the size and also the amount of 50/60 that he highlighted, which is from $50 to $60, which is I actually applaud for that. And thank you for increasing the 1,005 to 1,008 sort of cutoff. But my question is, where is the quantum? How is the quantum decided? Whether in the future can the PTV vouchers quantum be included within the overall budget sort of deliberation rather than on an ad hoc basis. However, I do note that the payment to alleviate the impact on households for public transport expenditure is actually much to be thanked for. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to first clarify that the PTV was adjusted, the criteria was adjusted from a per capita household income of 1,006 to 1,008. And the quantum was increased from $50 last year to $60 this year. Mr. Satyandi asked how we size up the quantum and how we size up the criterion. This is something that we will look at from time to time. Every time we do an exercise, we will take a look and see what is the coverage and what is the amount that we can provide to help to defray and mitigate, in this case, 6 months of the increase in fares for lower income households. And we also built into the application process some flexibility because we understand there are some households where they may have more household members, so they may need more than one PTV. And we do have this flexibility. They can appeal through the grassroots network, and additional PTVs can be given to help these households with more family members. The timing that Mr. Sekretary asked about, why not do it as part of budget? So I think this depends on the timing of the two exercises, because when we do the fair review, it is a little bit later. And when we decide on the PTVs, we first have to see what PTC recommends as the fare increase. Then we can size up the PTV accordingly.